Hello there. Hello there. Welcome to Remove the Mask, your authentic talk show where we dare to talk about everything that people do not talk about within the four walls of the church, but that is so real to us. So today, what if I told you that the first miracle Jesus ever performed was not healing a blind man or raising the dead? Rather, Jesus ensured that a wedding party did not stop. So Jesus was a socialite. Over 150 gallons of the best wine ever made was created out of thin air. Well, not really thin air, out of water. It was a miracle that shocked everyone, especially because you would usually serve the best wine first. Or better still, imagine the ultimate party disaster. Your wedding, the biggest day of your life, and the wine has completely run out. You are embarrassed. You are done. But suddenly, a guest decides to take ordinary water, just water, no less, and transforms it into the finest vintage anyone has ever tasted. So, in our modern world today, the debate over the water that these guests, that is Jesus Christ, the guest at this wedding, turned to wine. The debate is it alcoholic or non-alcoholic? And the debate has been intense, has made even many people pretend that they do not drink alcohol, whereas secretly they do, which implies that people put on masks regarding alcohol or no alcohol in order to conform to societal norms. So the book of John, chapter 2, tells us that Jesus performed his very first miracle by turning water into wine. We ask questions like, was this water turned wine? Was it a very high octane celebration wine or a fresh pressed beverage? These are some of the questions we will get answered today on Remove the Mask. Joining me as panelists to look at the theology, the history, and the culture of first century Jewish weddings and the topic, the water Jesus turned to wine, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, are the voice of today. Oh, well, I already have Charis Unogu on set. In a short while, Kamsi Stephens will join us. Charis is an IT undergraduate, very passionate evangelist. He loves the Lord. He's a world leader at Waiting Room Global and a very strong voice in his generation. A lot of his peers will tell you that they love this guy. He has great discernment and is moving in that space as one of the voices of today. In fact, top voices of today. We have met Kamsi Stephens last time, but let me tell you quickly about her too. She will join us. She's a law student as well, content creator, and emerging thought leader. She speaks on faith, law, and politics. She is the founder and leader of Insight Ministry. Joining us also from South Africa is Dr. Abbey Adenigba. He is the pastor of Shekinah Fellowship. He's a businessman. He's not just a pastor. He's a businessman, a realtor, one of the best and the topmost in South Africa. He lives in Johannesburg. He's also the CEO of Shekinah Institute, an institute that focuses on vision methodology. And you will get to hear his theological view on so many of these topics tonight, on this issue of, was it alcoholic or non-alcoholic? And the last but not the least, because I know people are waiting for us to get deep into this topic. The last but not the least is Dr. Tochukwu MacFoy, popularly known as Dr. Foy. He's a Nigerian-based creative strategist, media entrepreneur, and music executive working at the intersection of faith, entertainment, and brand strategy. He is the founder of Energize Central and Same Energy Global, platform focused on shaping culture and empowering creatives across Africa. This guy began his career in medicine at military hospitals. So he's a medical doctor. Before transitioning into media. He's working with Cool TV, Wazobia TV, and Viacom West Africa, MTV, BET, Comedy Central. Today, he is recognized as a narrative broker, leading creative campaigns for global brands, including Netflix, Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Airtel, and Access Bank. As CEO of Energize Music, Dr. Foy is a key voice in the Afro-gospel movement. There he is, managing artists such as T.Y. Bello and Greatman Takit. So he is a sought-after speaker and mentor. He has featured on many platforms. His work is deeply rooted in his Christian faith with a focus on raising purpose-driven leaders. He's happily married to Charity and they are blessed with children. So don't look there. He's fully engaged and married, occupied. And in that aspect, Dr. Abbey too is happily married to Funke Adenigba and with 3 lovely children as well. So, without taking further time, we need to remove this mask on what kind of wine did Jesus turn water to in Cana over 2,000 years ago that has still continued to generate very hot debate. The first person I'm going to ask, because he's a theologian, he's a pastor, I'm going to call Dr. Abbey. Dr. Abbey is also a chaplain, a martial chaplain. Dr. Abbey, what was the wine that Jesus turned water into? Was it alcoholic or non-alcoholic? Let's hear from you first.
Good evening, everyone, fellow panelists, the convener, Dr. Funke Adegunwa. Thank you very much for this program. Sorry, I may have come in a bit late. In South Africa now we're preparing for winter, so don't mind my dressing. It's getting cold. Now, this is a very important topic as well, and I thank you for the initiatives to remove the mask, those who are hiding behind several things and all that. First of all, I like to look at the crux of it, wine. Without looking at the literary meaning of wine, it is assumed that wine is a substance, a liquid substance that has alcoholic content, whether we like it or not. Now, it is a produce or byproduct of grapes, fruits, fermented, whatsoever, because they will tell you 10%, 13%, 50% in its description. Nowadays, we have seen non-alcoholic wine. That means that the alcoholic content has been sort of scientifically removed. So with this understanding, let's look at what happened in John chapter 2 at that very occasion, which is the premise of this dialogue. Now, theologically, I believe that it was an actual wine. And my reason is this. Every passage mentioned in the Bible referred to wine and prohibition of strong drink, and those who are intoxicated with wine were well narrated that he or she, or particularly he, was intoxicated by wine. The Bible did not say 10%, 5%, 2%. So I want to say, from before I looked at any description, I've read the Bible several times, and we know this story. I believe that it was alcoholic wine of those days, not of today, given the fact that that was an occasion, that was a wedding. And so at the moment, I'm looking at it as a wine that most likely contains alcohol. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Abbey. Your stand from the beginning is that it was alcoholic wine based on the definition of wine, and in those days, okay, I'm still going to take you up on that because you will need to clarify what happens to the Nazarite vow of Jesus. He's a Nazarite.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We will get there. So
yes.
You agree with me? We'll get there.
Yeah. There are many examples.
Okay, so we will get there. Now, over to you, Dr. Foy. You have heard Dr. Abbey. His stance is the, oh, Dr. Foy, I hope that's not Budweiser you're drinking.
No, it's coffee. Nescafe. Nescafe coffee, seeds. Coffee, oh.
I just wanted to make sure whether it was something alcoholic or non-alcoholic that you had in that big mug. Thank you for clarifying that it is black coffee. Yes. So, Dr. Foy, you've heard, before I even get to whether it was alcoholic or non-alcoholic, Dr. Foy, you are quite, I won't say contradictory, but from one extreme, a medical doctor in the military hospital. What made you decide that it is show business? You now want to sink all the money, the things your parents have invested in you into. Well, like my father, my dad said to me one day when I told him I'm no longer doing masters in mass communication, I'm going for fashion designing. He said he thought I had a brain wave. Permit me to suggest, to imply, I'm not really suggesting, I'm not saying you had a brainwave, but permit me to ask, did you get a brainwave from the medical field to show business? What happened?
I'm so honored to be here, first of all, honored to be here, Ma. And let me remove the mask of this story first. I've always been a dynamic person, and back in university, I was very creative, and I found my purpose journeying. My first creative work was actually to do a medical TV show in Cool TV then. Yeah, it was with Cool TV. It was with some people like Nedu and the rest, and then from there I became the head of content, and then from there, MTV head on. See, it was a journey from healthcare to main media, and God has used it mightily. We were doing big things with God with media. We're bringing the excellence. You know how Moses was trained in Egypt, and worked for Israel. So we're bringing the excellence. We're bringing a lot of excellence, creativity, no mediocrity. But he has broken us to bringing humility. I'm bringing character, so it's a merge of both. So yeah. And in my journey, I once worked for Budweiser. But I'll explain. So when they came to Nigeria, they wanted to do a football show, and I produced for them 54 episodes of football. I'm a popular Arsenal fan, so I produced 54 episodes of the football show and 20 episodes of the music show. So wow. Wow. So I wasn't drinking beer. I wasn't drinking beer before you start dragging me. On the question that you asked, Dr. Abbey, I think it's wine too. Did some research and it was called oinos. It was called oinos in the Greek, and it wasn't. I think we'll get there, but I think the focus of the wine was not what was in the cup, but what did the cup represent. So it wasn't about the percentage of the wine and alcohol in the cup. That wasn't the tone of that, because John said that it was a sign. So what was the sign? Not what was the alcoholic content. But yes, I think it was wine. I think it was oinos. I think it was fermented grapes or fermented fruits that became wine.
It's a very high octane of fermentation.
I don't know. Were you there? I know Mr. Abbey was there. Dr. Abbey was there. Dr. Abbey was definitely there.
I wasn't there.
Wow. So your take also is that it was alcoholic wine. Interesting. Let me ask the voice of today. Charis Unogu, you're here representing the voice of today. Was it alcoholic wine? And yes, from your perspective, then I will now knock you with another question when you answer that.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I Dr. Foy already said, what was on my mind, the Greek word and everything. Uh, I believe it was alcoholic wine.
Okay.
If we are just being honest with ourselves, I believe it was alcoholic wine because, I mean, maybe, I don't know the level of fermentation that happened to the wine, to the drink, but in that wedding, I believe that the drink was alcoholic because even, of course, the name of of course, those scriptures were not written in English. So by the time we check what the words actually meant, because sometimes English can be very limited in explaining what these words actually are. When you check, what some of these words meant, you find the deeper meaning. And if you check what wine in that case actually meant, they meant fermented wine. And of course, to make a wine alcoholic, you actually have to ferment it. So we don't know the degree to which it was fermented. We don't know the degree to which the fermentation could affect the person drinking it. But in all honesty, I believe it was alcoholic. But some other people, because some people some people interpreted it as a drink that wasn't fermented to that extent because they feel like, okay, because Jesus will probably not want to promote, people drinking wine because obviously the people that got that wine at the end of the day, some I don't it wasn't mentioned, but some probably got drunk from it
Wow.
because they said the wine was good. If something is good, you will take a lot. So you take so because people obviously say, oh, why would Jesus promote drinking of wine? Why would Jesus promote drinking of alcohol? Because Jesus obviously didn't like drunkenness. But it's from wine you can get to the point of drunkenness. So yeah, but certainly I believe it was alcoholic. But to the degree of alcohol, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think
Very
it's water.
interesting. Okay. It's not alcoholic wine. Thank you. You see, I am the only voice crying out from the wilderness saying that wine was not alcoholic. I'm going to ask Dr. Abbey first again. Tell us a little bit. I want so that you can know where I'm coming from. I want you people to be the ones really enlightening us about this wine being alcoholic. What then? What about Jesus' vow as a Nazarite? What does the Bible tell us? Because I believe very strongly, albeit the definition of wine. Now, Dr. Abbey started talking about the percentage and all of that of the alcohol. But then, what does the Nazarite vow mean, Dr. Abbey? What does it mean? Well, that relates to wine.
Thank you. When we look at the situation at that Cana, I'm not speaking from revelation point of view, to be honest, because if I'm speaking from revelation point of view by the power of the Holy Spirit, I will give it to you in a way that will really neutralize the alcohol issue.
Okay.
So I'm not on the pulpit, but pulpit is everywhere you are. But I don't want to speak from revelational point of view, but I want to speak from the fact that we're dealing with remove the mask. And there was now the question to me now is that, okay, was it alcohol? Which I said, I believe it was. Now you're talking about the Nazarite vow. Now we know from the book of Judges that we had indication of a Nazarite from the story of Samson. You remember that?
Yes.
Now that no strong drink must touch, he must not take a strong drink, which I believe the Lord was also, a Nazarite in that form. So now the question you are putting me in the middle now is that was it right? Can I conclude that being a Nazarite, it could not have given them what the people wanted? Because weddings in those old, the Jewish old culture, it's an important occasion. And when you look at some other commentary, which says that it was an embarrassing situation. It was an embarrassing situation because in those Jewish family, every guest probably had brought something of note to that couple. And then suddenly you said wine had finished. It was an embarrassing situation. So he could not have denied what I know something, what I've observed about the Lord's account. He respects culture. And I would not be able to conclude the argument by saying that being a Nazarite, he could not have given an alcohol, but by the description, the narratives, it said it's wine. And I want to believe that it was wine, irrespective of the Nazarene call, because that was the beginning of his ministry, really. But it was an embarrassing situation. So, in real discussion, I want to submit that it probably, to save the situation, to save that situation, to save the couple from embarrassment. And, they were also part of a family. So let me leave it there. So being Nazarite.
You better leave it there, because where you're going, I'm going to ask you several questions of, so to save a situation, you must then break your vow. But let's hear what Dr. McFoy has to say concerning Jesus' Nazarite vow, because according to that vow, as a Nazarite, you must not even touch the grape of the vine in case it has fermented. Yes.
So, first of all, I don't think he was a Nazarite, Jesus. I think, and I can give you many examples, and I've studied it. Being a Nazarene doesn't make you a Nazarite. There are 4 things that Nazarites do that Jesus did. He touched dead bodies. As a Nazarite, you don't touch dead bodies. He did, though. Lepers. You don't touch lepers. As a Nazarite, there was never a thing about him cutting hair. He said, John the Baptist came fasting. I came eating and drinking. That drinking, I read the drinking in the core. The drinking was not only water. Go and check it out in the Greek form. He said, I came eating and drinking. So there's no biblical Nazarene doesn't mean you have the Nazarite vows. And like I said, I'm not a theologian at all. But
then why are you proving this if you're not a theologian? You're going in the way of theology.
Because I read about the Nazarite, and I've watched a documentary about the Nazarites. And in the documentary, they were it was an argument about Jesus had dreads. That was the documentary. This was years ago. They were trying to, some Ethiopian was trying to prove that Christ was a Nazarite, that he had dreads and he was black. And a white man was like, no, he was from Nazarene and it was different. So, but that's I'm double clicking another page. But I feel that Nazarites had some laws about not touching. I'm not sure just would even touch not touching lepers. He said, I came eating and drinking, and so I don't think he was a Nazarite. But if he was a Nazarite, I align with what Dr. Abbey said, that his heart was merciful and he's above the law. He is above the law. God has chosen love over the law. I haven't come to abolish the law, but so if he was, like I said, I don't know, but if he was a Nazarite, then I understand from his angle, because God is full of love. Christ is full of love. He did things that broke everything that he did a lot of things that broke laws of that time, the laws of Pharisees. One day I was thinking that if Mary Magdalene, because in those days they eat in the night, they eat by 1 a.m. and a prostitute came and used her body and left the room, it would look dirty in this our time. Let's remove the mask. It would look wild. But Christ was that guy who could touch every part of humanity and not get stained, because his love was high. So I align, but I don't think, because I remember that argument that he had dreads, he didn't cut his hair. There was no mention of him not cutting his hair. So I don't know about Nazarite, but this is my thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Foy. Before I address that issue of no mention of him not cutting his hair, there was also no mention of him even using the restroom or taking a shower, if the truth be said. Before we get there, I see that he's also shaking his head and, agreeing with everybody that Jesus was a Nazarite, was not a Nazarite, even though he was from Nazarene. So, Charis, what do you have to say?
Oh, I agree with Jesus not being a Nazarite.
Why?
Because, like he said, he didn't take any vows. He didn't take any vows. Of course, Nazarites had, of course, the vows that they had were not the only things that they couldn't do. The vows that we saw, they were not the only things that they couldn't do. Like he said, he couldn't. If they see you, it was more of a religious thing. It was not a thing of. It was not really a thing of lifestyle. If they see you doing this, then Jesus was never about that. If they see me, then this rule applies. Jesus literally lived a life. And now his life, he has one simple mission. And if he has that mission, it automatically, takes out the whole, making a pledge, I can't do this, I can't do that, because that goes against the mission. What if the mission involves him, not compromising, but doing some things that are not sin, but go against the Nazarite rule?
That's my point.
I believe,
Why
couldn't have been a Nazarite.
Why should he be a Nazarite then break all the Nazarite rules? Then,
What rule did he break? What rule?
Nazarites don't drink. Nazarites, he said.
Did you see him drink?
He said, I came eating and drinking.
Communion.
He said it. You know what? Go and Google it. He said, I came. He said, like, I can show you the root meaning. Like, John the Baptist. Yeah, so he said, and it wasn't water or coffee or grape juice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why should he now take a role and then break the role just to prove? I don't think that is. I don't know. I'm a theologian. I'm just a Christian that loves Jesus.
Okay. Let's then ask the theologian, because I am not going to agree with the three of you that Jesus turned that water into wine. We're not even going to talk about whether we Christians or whoever can drink. We won't go there on this particular show. But we want to really discuss that water in Galilee. Dr. Abbey, you heard what Dr. Foy said, and Charis, they are saying that Jesus broke all of those Nazarite vows. I cannot pick one that he broke.
Okay. I think I would sort of concur with their opinion, or because don't forget that the Nazarites is of the Old Testament. Is of the Old Testament. Jesus carried the grace that has to be expressed. So the emphasis as a Nazarite was not much in the New Testament, because when you study the book of Numbers, that's where the rules of the Nazarites were all instituted, and the rules, and it's still part of the law. You understand what I'm saying? The only thing that I couldn't agree with Dr. McFoy, that he touched the dead. I think you're talking about the story where he met the woman going to bury the son. I don't know, but if I remember very well, he stretched. The casket is different from the body. I think that is what you are referring to, because even up till today, the priests don't do that. Anyone who is a priest don't do that, really. So he couldn't have put forward the Nazarite rule or principle. Otherwise, it will not fulfill that aspect of his humanity. He eats and drink like it's fulfilling the humanity. So I don't think that the rule of the Nazarite came into play, and it has to do with the law. And again, to also support that, either we want to argue whether he was a Nazarite or not, don't forget that he is the high priest. He is our high priest. So it's above the Nazarites' rule or law. So that is where we are going to look at it from. That event of Canaan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abbey. So Jesus is the high priest.
Yes.
We know who he is, but he was fully human here.
Yes. Yes.
He had humbled himself to come and be fully human. So when he was here on earth, he was fully human.
Human, yeah.
Felt everything each of us has ever felt.
Yes.
And you cannot say you want to abolish the Old Testament because the Nazarites were in the Old Testament. No. In fact, Jesus, part of the Old Testament is that every child, every Jewish child that is born must be presented in the temple.
That's correct.
Not only was it presented, all the turtle doves, everything that goes with that tradition was presented in the temple. As far as I sit here, my view, I know everybody is saying, no, Jesus turned that water into wine. I want to believe that it was non-alcoholic wine. then I go into the aspects. So, Dr. Foy, I'm going to ask you to help us. You're saying that Jesus has come to lead people into sin, to make them get drunk?
Hey,
No.
God.
No,
This is
He's not saying that.
this is
no, that's what
this-
you're inferring.
Hey, God.
That's what
Hey, God.
the
This
three
is
of you are
this is
inferring.
I knew this was coming. My
In
God.
fact, Charis actually said there is no way that people did not get drunk in that event. I can understand where it's coming from in that regard. Dr. Abe also inferred into that a little bit about the Jewish culture. Jewish marriages in those days spans 7 days.
Yes.
So midway, no more drink. So Dr. Foy, kindly prove to us that Jesus has come to get people drunk. Yes, please help us with that.
So first of all, I think that Christian theology has said Christian theology from 2 Corinthians, I think 2 or 3, no, 5. It said he knew no sin.
Yes.
I think First Peter's spoke about he committed no sin. Hebrews 4 spoke about so Christ. If Christ drink Fanta, if just grab anything, that cannot be sin. He can produce sin. So let us first,
Definitely.
he's the redeemer of sin. So he's so let's first agree that is not that he didn't I think that and this is where I started with in this thinking, just thinking about it since yesterday. I think what was in the cup and in the jar, the content wasn't the goal of this miracle. I think it was what is represented. And I love what he said at the beginning, Dr. Abbey, when he said that if it goes by revelation, he would neutralize this conversation. If the Bible says the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The
You even
Bible
have
said
a big Bible right there with you.
Yes, the Bible said the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. That means if we read the Bible without the spirit and not add typologies and revelation, it can kill us. That's the truth. If the Bible wrote it, it can kill us. So I would quickly run away and say, no, he didn't lead us to sin. I would say that was a contextual event that represented so many things. The focus wasn't drunk and drunkenness. The focus wasn't fermentation and 5% or 10%. He wasn't spirit. He didn't make Hennessy or vodka. That wasn't the focus. The focus was, I think the focus was what he represented in Revelation. Nevertheless, just based on letters, I have said that is oinos. In the Old Testament, I think it was Solomon, I don't know who would, you can drink a little wine for your stomach. Yeah, it's in the Bible. I think in Proverbs.
Yeah, Timothy was.
We will get to that.
Yes.
We will get to that.
So there's Mama, if you eat, I mean, I'm somewhere. I just ordered some food. If you eat 40 plates of rice, that is sin. If you drink 70 cups of coffee, that is sin. So sin now based on letter, whatever you in moderation. If you is about moderation, about control, about what will harm your body, your hair. So that's going based on just letters. But I think that it was more than letters. I think the revelation of that day was deeper than just what was in the cup. It was what the cup represented. I'll hand over to my senior, Dr. Abbey, quickly before I'm thrown under the bus to help me out, sir. because it is too, it's beyond my quickly. I run.
You know,
I run the
you
bullet.
know,
Carry
you
on.
know, the issue of the wine, like I said in the beginning, that even today, you see this wine, they say 5%, 10%, 1%. Okay. Now, when we look at our Bible very, very well, the Bible even distinguished between wine and what is called strong drink. Because you mentioned vodka, you cannot know whatsoever. So, but certain volume of wine might make you drunk. Then there's a strong drink. So when we relate this to the present times, we know what a strong drink. We know what is wine. Now, I know the next question that will come, but I don't want to preempt. But I can use a reverse psychology and say that is it a sin for those who drink red wine after their food?
Dr. Abbey, we will get to that on the next episode, because you've started opening a can of canker worms.
Okay.
And where we are right now is tension. Was that wine alcoholic? So, Dr. Abbey, you're telling us that Jesus produced something that could intoxicate people. There are some people, no, before we get there,
he did not produce
Dr. McFoy said, Dr. Foy said, let me tell you, Dr. Foy said, and this is amazing. He did not say when you eat 4 plates of rice, it is excess and is a sin. He went to 70. There is forgetting that there are people that their stomach can only take maybe 1 mug or 1 teacup, Chinese teacup of food, and they're full. So he has gone to 70 plates. So intoxication is what I am talking about. Jesus came to intoxify people. Is that what you're saying?
With the Spirit of God. No wine, not wine. You don't come at me before this.
This guy.
Even Charis, evangelist Charis Unogu, you're saying yes, because
Apostle Charis.
Yes, he's an apostle, and he's so passionate and fervent about the Bible. But what he's saying here tonight is shocking me. I'm almost beginning to say, do I really know this Charis saying that Jesus created intoxicating wine together with Dr. Abbey and Dr. Foy, because this is where the 3 of you leaned towards. Charis, what exactly are you saying? That because you see that you've forgotten the context where I sit. I wish Kamsi was there, because she was going to be on the side of it not being alcoholic wine, because she came in and then maybe network or something, because there is the new wine, which is purely apple juice, or, it's not fermented. This was the wine Jesus created. So, Charis, what are you talking about here? What exactly are you saying? Jesus has come to give life, and life abundant, by getting people intoxicated.
Well, if we because I was thinking about it from another perspective. If you look at it from the medical perspective, we also see that I think I heard someone sharing. I think it was Reverend Christy Baturi. She was talking about some parts of the brain. Okay, so this is where I'm driving at. She said that there are parts of the brain that sex, alcohol, and drugs awaken, like highness, basically. So someone can
There's
be
a
high.
medical doctor here. He too can tell us. Carry on. Yes.
Someone can be high on sex. Someone can be high on drugs. Someone can be high on alcohol. Someone can even be high on some things that they smoke, different things. And one of the parts of the brain that I saw that it awakens is the reward circuit. And of course, the reason why it awakens some of those parts is because of the excessive release of dopamine that happens when those things are done. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're now saying that, if you're saying that we say that the wine that Jesus turned that water into was alcoholic, and you're interpreting that as us saying that, oh, Jesus led people to sin, or Jesus who brought in the new wine led people to drink alcoholic wine, then I believe we can also ask questions about God bringing sex into the picture, be fruitful and multiply, because these things are also things that are not, it's not wrong in itself, but when it's done to an extent, it's wrong. For example, drinking to a point of drunkenness is wrong. There are drugs that are good. There are drugs that help medically. And of course, sex in marriage is good, but sex outside of marriage is bad. So I believe that if you can use that metric for alcoholic wine, I believe we should also use the metric for everything else, especially things that, you know, have the same effect that alcoholic wine has, which is highness.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hear that. Dr. Foy, you are also a medical doctor. This angle that Charis brought into it is actually the voice of today that is speaking, whereby some part of our brain, but maybe because I'm not a medical person, I may not have a quick understanding of that. Dr. McFoy, is it true what Charis has just explained to us, that there is a part of the brain that is in charge of sex, drink, drugs, and you just heard him. You just heard him.
Yeah, so I align with him, and let me explain further. So there's a so they are I'll try to explain this in another way. I'll say that your hormones are almost chemicals of worship. I call the hormones.
I didn't get that. Repeat that. Okay. I love worship.
No, your hormones,
yes,
are also called chemicals of worship.
Yes.
If your body is a temple, your hormones are chemicals of worship. For example, when Jesus Christ was in a boat sleeping and there was a storm, if it happens to me and you that we're your dopamine and your hormones, you just jump up. It would either worship fear or faith. So most times, who we are is when God takes you through discipleship and correction, he also manages your hormones. That's why you see a man of God who see is a man that say, get up. He won't have fear hormones. The hormones are chemicals of worship. This is my field, but I can't bring it here. So I agree with him. Different things can spike your neural pathways and bring out alcohol and sex. And so I align with him totally about that. I think I also want to add and say that it's also very subjective what can make somebody high. Like just to add to carry, I'll be honest with you. You're right. Some people are addicted to coffee. Coffee is their caffeine. It's
Yes.
so yeah, caffeine. Some people they don't alcohol, nothing. So I'm not going to start making sin subjective. Is coffee a sin? That's now we're going left. But I'll say that I don't think that the intention of Jesus that night was to cause sin. So there's also intention and action. Sin starts from intention, and that's the truth. We both know that
Yes.
sin, that God looks at the inside. If somebody does something in ignorance, and the whole point, yes, I'm not sure Jesus Christ in his intention say, I want to shy, I want to drink. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's Burna Boy. And you go and shy, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Over to you, Ma. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You see, your creative side is coming out and just making us understand this even more, because from what you just said, you're actually leaning towards my own argument, the theological argument. Is that my own theological argument is that Jesus will not create a substance that will cause intoxication, even if it was consumed in moderation. Moderation being quite relative, what moderation will be, because what is moderation to me may not be moderation. There are people that can drink like 20 bottles of beer in a night and will still drive. And there are some people only a shot and they're rambling like that. So will Jesus, Dr. Abbey, you are the theologian.
Well,
Do you
thank you so much.
from where you are sitting, believe that Jesus created alcoholic wine in that event? Or
Okay.
do you think what he created was new wine, which is fresh grape juice? Answer that.
Well, we're saying here, remove the mask.
Mm,
From what Dr. McFoy was saying,
yes.
we must measure the intention.
Uh-huh.
The intention of the Lord was not to get people drunk.
Mhm.
However, I've read some other commentaries, like the Calvinism. The Calvinist believes that that Mary actually went to report the situation and to save the couple from embarrassment. And she expects that the Lord will demonstrate, God's love. Would I say compassion? But more or less, and they further said that, she believed that the Lord is able to do something. You know, if a mother is saying, whatever he says, just do it. The mother
Mhm.
knew him better than all of them in that parish.
Of
So,
course.
so those commentaries, they are commentaries. They are not the real test. But now I want to now take you further.
Mhm.
When you read John chapter 2 that we are examining. Now, look at what the guests were saying. Go to around verse 10. the guests were saying that, no, look, when they tasted what the Lord made available, they were saying that, no, but why is it you have kept the good wine, nice one like this, you kept it to the last, which, contrary to the practice of entertainers, we probably give you the cheaper one or whatsoever. They serve the good one first. They will serve the good one first. But you brought the good one last. Why did they query that? When you read in some translations will give you further that most people serve the good wine first, then they serve the cheaper one. Why did they serve the cheaper one? Because they will assume that you are drunk at that time. So, and that seems to suggest that, in that context of that wedding, this was not a grape juice. It was the wine that they normally serve, that people know that they served. However, what the Lord rescued them by saying, fill those pots. It's a traditional pot for the Jewish people for water. And when they tasted it, it turns to wine. You see, so it couldn't have been any other wine, and now it tastes much better. There was some quality to that wine. There was some quality to that wine. So in that context, I believe that he gave them what the people are used to at that point. But the intention was not to get them to get drunk. No, it was not the wine to get people drunk. I don't think so. That was not his intention. Yes.
So, I wish there was a legal person. I wish Kamsi will just come now to be able to tell us what the law says about ignorance or intention, because I may not have an intention to get people drunk.
Yes.
Then people get drunk. Like Charis said, even though it's not written, but people did get drunk because this was an event that spanned more than one day and they kept drinking. Hey, Dr. Abbey, Dr. McFoy, Charis, you're telling us that Jesus turned over 200 gallons of water into alcoholic wine. Is that your take? Over 200 gallons. What is a gallon, Charis? You are the voice of today. What is a gallon? So that give us a pictorial view of what a gallon is, so that our viewers, our listeners on YouTube, it's a good time to welcome everyone listening in on YouTube as well. Please do not forget to ask your questions regarding this. If you're for Jesus, the wine he turned it into was non-alcoholic, please tell us your reason for that. And if you're for, okay, it was alcoholic, also tell us your reason. So give us a picture view of what a gallon is, that people can easily say, oh, this is a gallon. Use something common that people should easily recognize. What is a gallon? So that from there, we will now multiply 1 gallon with 200, over 200, about 250, some theologians said, of wine, 250 gallons. So what is a gallon?
A gallon is like 2.5 of, you know, those big bottles of what, those ever water bottles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 2 of them, then like a small bottle.
Okay. Okay. So
So it's
that's like
about 4.5 liters, something like that.
a gallon is about 4.5 to 5 liters. Dr. McFoy, do you agree to that? A gallon.
I think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll check.
Yes, it's
I'll
quite
check.
right.
I think so.
It's right. Dr. Abbey, you agree to that as well. So, since you all agree to that, multiply 4.5 liters.
It's more than that, actually. It's more
It's
than
actually
that
like
because
5 liters. A gallon is 5 liters.
it's more than that because it depends. You know, I use my Bible is usually American Standard Version, and if I'm studying, then I look at other version. But I
Yes.
think when you go to New English Translation, each gallon is about 120 liters. Each gallon.
Gallon.
Yes. That means those pots, you know, there were 6. There were 6. Yes.
Okay.
So about between 115 and 120 liters.
Each.
Yes.
And there were 6 of them.
6 of them. Yeah.
Can you
But
imagine?
I think it depends on the
Jesus really
gallon.
came to get people drunk. That's what you're saying. Dr. Abbey, Dr. McFoy.
Well, not the McFoy has said that we have to measure the intention. The intention was not to get people drunk. The intention was to save the couple from embarrassment.
Okay.
Now, the content of this wine is a bone of contention here. Was it alcoholic or not?
Okay.
And the house is saying here that it's alcoholic.
I am saying no. Because if you're
Okay.
Jesus is trying to save somebody from embarrassment and therefore trying to save the family from embarrassment. So therefore, his intention is pure. So you as a pastor, Dr. McFoy, in the space you work in, you speak on religious matters, whether you preach or not. Everything you do is centered on being a Christian. The same thing to Charis. So if a girl, thank God, all 3 of you are men. So if a young lady is saying her body is requesting for sex, in order not to embarrass the young lady, you will either give her a man to sleep with her. I'm just taking what you're saying literally. Or you yourself, don't let me finish that.
I don't.
Yes, sorry, say something. So if a young girl
I mean, I wanted to let you.
I'm cold, my body is longing for sex, is longing for sex. In order not to embarrass the girl further, you will do the undoable. Hey, welcome.
I wanted to let you
Kamsi.
finish before I spoke.
Yes, go for it now that I've concluded that.
I don't know. I don't know if this can be okay, maybe. I don't know if this can be the same thing. I don't know if this can be the same thing, honestly. Like if I don't know if we can I don't know if we can use the same, you know, bringing someone out of embarrassment. I don't know if we can use that same phrase for these two for these two scenarios at the same degree, because this is one is a sin and one is not. One
Okay.
can possibly lead to sin. One is a sin. Like one is already a sin there. Whether you gave the girl someone to sleep with, or whether you slept with the girl, but it's still a sin. Any sex that is done at that point is a sin. The other one, the alcohol, Jesus did not commit any sin. If anybody decides to overdrink it, that person has sinned. Jesus did not sin. And even in that scenario, if I remember well, Mary came to Jesus and Mary was like, okay, this is the situation. And Jesus is like, my time has not yet come. So could I also ask if Jesus was probably just being obedient to authority, which is his mom, earthly authority, which is his mom? Because in my opinion, I don't think Jesus even wanted to do that miracle. Because even him, he said, my time is not yet come. But now, because his mom has come and said, okay, yeah, look at the situation, wine has finished. Okay, let me just, and she's like, okay, listen to whatever he says. I personally believe that Jesus did not want to do a miracle. He never planned to do a miracle that day. His time had not yet come. It was not God's will for him to do that miracle. Jesus, fully God, fully man. It was not his will to do that miracle. It was something of like a play between, okay, God's will, human intervention. Now human has intervened, and now the thing that he's doing is not sin, but it's doesn't align with God's will. I don't know, because now that the thing is in, if I start talking, I'll talk too much. But now that the thing is in scriptures, can someone will now say, okay, this is part of Jesus' miracle? But the Jesus' miracle in question that is being recorded as the first, he said by himself that it's not his time. It wasn't God's will for Jesus to do a miracle at that wedding. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. I hear you. Kamsi is here, another voice of today. I want to ask you, what is your take? Do you believe that wine in Cana, Galilee, that Jesus turned from water into wine, was it alcoholic or non-alcoholic, Kamsi?
I think it was alcoholic, and this is why. Hear me out. So this is why I think it was alcoholic. First of all, let me just apologize for my lateness. There were some difficulties that prevented me from being here on time. So this is why I think it's alcoholic. In that time, there was nothing like Welch's fruit wine, or there was nothing like I don't think the production of everything then was organic, right? So the wine that they drank, I think it was probably either you drank wine or you drank water. That's what I think. So I don't think it was non-alcoholic. I actually do think it was alcoholic. I genuinely.
Okay, very interesting. You came in from that angle. In that time, need I say that there had always been non-alcoholic. I'll give you a good example. And Dr. Abbey, Dr. McFoy should be able to back me or at least say, you're right. When you take fresh wine from a palm tree, it has not sat down, really ice cold from the palm tree. It doesn't have alcohol at that stage. Dr. Abbey, are you aware of that? Dr. McFoy, are you aware of that?
That is not an alcohol. It's not alcoholic at that stage.
Yes,
when it comes from the
oil, fresh palm wine from the tree. As soon as you take that palm wine and you've collected it fresh like that, it has not fermented. There's no alcohol in it.
Okay. If I may just come in there, I think I don't know who is a scientist there or who is a beverage specialist or who,
Dr.
somebody
McFoy
must
will
be able.
help us.
Yeah, but you see, I believe that there was, not there was, in terms of what you're saying, grapes, those things must go through some metamorphosis before, which is fermentation, you might call it. So, but the one from the palm tree that you said is not alcoholic, I'm not sure. That, that might be
Oh,
contrary to what I understand.
are
Maybe
you
because I'm not.
serious?
Yes, it can get people drunk, or it gets people drunk.
Really?
Yes.
Doctor,
Let's maybe somebody who used to be in the palm wine, what do they call them in those days, universities, is palm wine club or whatever. Maybe they can explain that aspect. But in terms of John chapter 2, it was a miracle. It was a
just listen
miracle.
to this.
We cannot define.
I quickly Googled what
Okay.
you just said. I gave you
Yes.
that as an example because I thought you will be able to answer that question because I happen to know your roots. You are from Ekiti, and there are a
Yes.
lot, and they drink palm wine and
Yes. Yes. That's
all of
correct.
that.
Yeah.
So it says, uh, palm wine. Yes, it is an alcoholic beverage, but its alcoholic content changes rapidly immediately after tapping. It is sweet, sugary,
Yes.
and non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
Immediately. You get what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
then the natural fermentation begins within hours, which is the
Okay.
point I am making.
Okay.
That Jesus turned water into non-alcoholic wine. Maybe as it sat, rapid changes started happening. It
Okay.
became alcoholic
Okay.
because this is what I know. Let me give you another good example. Some of you may know and some may not know. If you take overripe plantain and you leave it in water and you put some pepper, dry pepper, into it and you cover it, do you know that it will turn into wine? Alcoholic wine. Oh, you didn't quite get that. Let me re-explain. Fresh, overripe plantain, you cut it into water and you cut the dry pepper, not the powder one.
Okay.
And you leave it for overnight, a couple of days. The more days you leave it, the more the alcoholic content changes. Are you aware that you can actually make local wine from
I've heard something
plantain?
similar, but oranges. I heard about that using oranges. So I think that the point you are trying to make, which if I want to subscribe to that, will be that the water that turned into wine miraculously could not have gone through that fermentation, and therefore it's non-alcoholic. That's what you're trying to say. Now,
Exactly.
thank you for that. Then now, look, if we're saying that each jar is about between 20 and 27 gallons, which is about 120 liters.
Yeah.
Now, could they have finished it? Could they have finished it within an hour or within 30 minutes? This was a wedding. This was a wedding. You see, this was a wedding. So it's possible. That's why now we can now emphasize on the intention that the Lord didn't intend to create alcohol or to make them drunk. Let's look at it. So we cannot deny the fact of the potential alcoholic condition that the wine will find itself. Because primarily, and this was a miracle. This was a miracle. It was a taste of new things to come. Let's get closer. It was a taste of new things to come. Now I'm speaking like a pastor now. So
hallelujah!
You want to do altar call right here. Dr. McFoy, you missed an aspect, which is, are you aware that when you tap palm wine from the tree, it doesn't have any alcoholic content? Fresh. Are you aware of that?
You
are thinking you should go and try it.
I've tried it before. Sharp. But my question was that, did he say palm wine? Did he say palm wine?
No, I'm saying palm wine.
Palm wine is only in Africa, not in Israel.
Okay. No.
Palm wine is only in the East, not in Israel.
See, what I am trying to get across, now that Kamsi is here, she's a law student, we will ask her, what does the law say about intention? I was actually hoping she will get in on that. So we are going to ask her, what does the law say about intention? But why I brought out the example of palm wine is that the same thing, and Dr. Abbey agreed that Jesus, well, that's what he has now said. He agrees with me that the initial water that Jesus turned into wine was non-alcoholic. But as they sat rapidly, it started changing into alcoholic. From grape, fresh, sweet. And keep in mind, the Jewish wedding is 7 days. So wine finished like on the 3rd day. So they were drinking. So it was getting better because the fermentation continued. But it wasn't that Jesus turned water into alcoholic wine. And where is Kamsi now to tell us about this intention that we're dragging? Because I also mentioned that you can make plantain, you can use plantain and pepper, dry pepper, with water to make wine, local wine. Have you tried that before, Dr. McFoy?
Never. Never. And I will not try it.
I'll remove the mask for you now.
I would never try that. Plantain and pepper. I would never. What am I drinking? That you purge now. That you stew. It will destroy your stomach. Plantain and pepper.
No, you're saying that the local wine destroys stomach.
I'm not saying, hey, God. Plantain wine. Plantain wine would destroy stomach.
Really?
Let's move the mask. Let's remove the mask.
Remove the mask. Remove the mask, Dr. McFoy. I don't believe it will destroy stomach. It actually tastes nice. As a young girl, we experimented with it with my brothers. And we found that that was what happened. And so, for me, that is why I can categorically say that Jesus, the water he turned into wine, had a progression that happened and changed the alcoholic content. But what he turned into wine was non-alcoholic. It was fresh juice, it was sweet. But as they sat there, a few hours later, fermentation started taking place. Like anything, except they have put it in the freezer, fermentation will begin to take place. So sitting there for day 1, day 2, day 3, of course, the alcoholic content will increase. Charis, does that make sense? Dr. Abbey,
Yes.
does that make sense?
Yeah, well, like the analysis you gave in terms of initial stage of any grape or a palm wine, in the first few hours, minutes of it, it's definitely hasn't gotten to that level of being alcoholic. So it is possible that the water that turned to wine was not alcoholic. Now, when we now say that in terms of the principle of the process of fermentation or metamorphosis, there's a likelihood that the wine, which was sweeter than the first, could become alcoholic. But going back to the initial argument, that the intention of the Lord was not to get people drunk. And we can say further that you can see that in future gatherings, there was nothing mentioned like that. There was nothing mentioned like about this kind of miracle. Was no longer mentioned. Neither did anyone aim to expect one. Even when he went to the house of Simon, the Simon the Pharisee in Luke chapter 7, there was nothing mentioned like that. However, I want to ask a question.
Carry on.
In Luke chapter 22, at the Lord's Supper, what wine was that?
Alcoholic.
Maybe anybody can, maybe Pastor Charis can respond.
I believe it was alcoholic.
Okay.
Charis, what you are driving at now is that Christians should begin to drink alcohol because Jesus turned water into alcoholic.
No.
Dr. Abbey.
Christians shouldn't get drunk.
No.
I don't know about Christians drinking alcohol or not, but they shouldn't get drunk. And I would not advise a Christian to drink alcohol, but
Sure.
don't get drunk.
Yeah, it's a question that I asked.
Will Christ turn water into wine and not have a taste of it?
Okay, that's another question. Okay, please let me just answer that. In that John chapter 2, it was not mentioned. You understand? It was not mentioned that he drank out of it. Okay, so we cannot answer that question. I cannot answer that question. It was not mentioned, and we believe in the law of mention and the law of first mention. It was not mentioned, so I would say that they did not, because I don't want to go out of context, but even the miracle in John chapter 6, the feeding of the 5,000,
Mhm.
did he eat the bread or what? The Bible did not mention. But what the Bible mentioned was that they came again and they were expecting bread. You see,
Okay.
so there is the understanding that that came into all these things and the people. But this John chapter 2, I think it was, I don't want to say a pressure, but I think it was compassion. It was a demonstration of a new thing to come. It's just a sample of what is to come. There was no intention to make everybody go, no, 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 no. And it's not an excuse for us to say that, yeah, you turn water into wine. The wine
Okay.
may not be, the wine may not be the wine we are drinking today. Let's put it that, because the young lady said that in those days it was, or I don't know who said it, that it was more organic and all that. It may not be.
Yes, it's Kamsi that said that.
The Kamsi said that it was, those days they were organic. They were, so it wouldn't have deviated. It may
So,
not be the one we're talking today. Thank
okay,
you.
Kamsi, thank you very much, Dr. Abbey, for that. Now that you are on the set,
Yes, ma'am.
what does the law say about intent? Because all through this discussion, we've been hearing Jesus did not plan if people got drunk, and your voice of today, core voice of today, apostle in the marketplace, Charis has also said that he is almost certain, even though it's not written, that people got drunk because there were several thousands of liters of water, of wine, and they were there for several days. So Jesus changes water into alcoholic wine. And people are saying his intention was not to get people drunk. What does the law say about that? If people got drunk and start misbehaving?
The law or the Lord?
The law, L-A-W.
Wait, are we talking about like legally or the law?
Yes, legally.
So definitely, when it comes to actions under the law, there are two things to consider, right? And these are derived from Latin maxims. There's actus reus, and then there's mens rea. So actus reus is the actions of the person, and the mens rea is the mental or the intent, so to say, of the person. So, for example, just to deviate a little bit, that's what, not even to deviate, to be on point, that's what separates murder from manslaughter, right? So that's how you can say this was murder and this was manslaughter. So if someone takes a gun and shoots someone with the intent to kill them, that was murder. So the action would be shooting the person, and the mens rea would be the intent of the person. But if someone shoots a gun without intending to kill the person, then it's manslaughter because their intent was not to kill the person, even though the action was present. So this is what I was saying. Jesus, like my brother said, Charis, I strongly believe what Charis said about Jesus not even wanting to perform those miracles. Because Jesus, from the little I know about him, is a man of precision, or was a man of precision when he was God on earth. So he waited and waited and waited for his time to come, so much so that his own forerunner began to question him. Right? So I don't think it was the intent of Jesus to get them drunk. Jesus was providing wine, was submitting to authority, as Charis said. However, this is the thing. You can't control the actions of other people, right? So if his intentions was not to get them drunk and they got drunk either way, legally you can't hold Jesus, because I provided wine, right, for you guys because wine had finished.
I got that.
Your capacity of self-control than me as a person. So I don't think legally Jesus would be indicted. But then a little bit though, this is actually a very controversial topic in my generation. And I just ask, why is it that this is the only time you guys ever examine the life of Jesus? Like, out of every other thing he did, it's only the controversial thing of him drinking. You didn't see him healing the sick. You didn't see him raising the dead. You didn't see him living holy, right? Because I've come to understand that in our generation, and I thank God that there's a remnant. This generation will do anything to excuse whatever wrong that they have to do. So if we want to have this debate, it is not logically palatable to blame Jesus for whatever they did with that wine. Is there a possibility that people were drunk? Very much so. And let me just add that they were drunk before Jesus even turned water into wine. Because that was the plan. That was the plan of amen. That was the plan of the master of ceremony, that okay, we have good wine and we have rubbish wine. Okay, so we'll get them drunk and then we'll serve them the nonsense where they can't even they can't even they can't even tell the difference. But because everything that comes out of Jesus can't but be good, there was a distinct difference that so much that the master of ceremony had to hold the session. So I don't think you can legally indict Jesus for whether they were drunk or whether they weren't drunk. He provided wine, and whatever they did with that wine is not something you can hold him for. And I also let's say, seeing Jesus from the lens of savior, I also don't think, with drunkenness being a sin, I also don't think he intended for them to, sin.
Hey, very interesting. Do you know why it gets more interesting? Is that with everything you have, to me, with everything you have just analyzed, it therefore means that Jesus would not want to get people drunk. Therefore, he's not going to create alcoholic wine. So that wine that Jesus turned, that water that Jesus turned into wine in Galilee, was non-alcoholic. And never forget, even though Jesus said, oh, Mom, it's not yet my time. What do I have with you, woman? And you're saying that Jesus had no intention to do that kind of a thing. Then you are taking away the God in him.
Oh.
You are taking away the God in him. Dr. Abbey, do you agree with me? Everything Jesus did, he knew he was going to do it. What do you say to that, Dr. Abbey?
Well, I wouldn't emphasize that he knew he was going to do it. But I think that we have to look at the will of God for him. Okay. And whatever happened to him was by the will of God. Now, like in the present age, there are certain pressure that a man of God find himself. And those pressure that have put them into trouble are outside of the will of God. Okay. And when we look at the time of the Lord, let's take, for example, the Syrophoenician woman who seek help and deliverance for a daughter. Let's also think about the Zacchaeus, the taxman, that everyone knows that no, this taxman is a sinner. So they came in contact with the Lord, and he reaches out to them. So likewise, that at this wedding, that there was a shortage, there was a moment that the drink was finished. And the mother ran to him. We must also question, why did the mother go to him? Was the Lord a financier of the wedding? No, it wasn't a financier. But there must have been some other reasons. And like I mentioned to you, that some biblical commentaries said that Mary, the mother, knows the deification. You see, when you are reading the book of John, the Gospel of John, it speaks more of the deity of the Lord. There are some miracles you will see in the Gospel of John that reveals his deity, and that is what the Gospel of John is like.
It's all
So
about.
this event, yes. So this event, I would say, is one of those pressure that came on the Lord. And he even said that, woman, is not yet my time. But then he just have to, okay, let them fill up those pots. Let them fill up those pots. And he turned around the situation of embarrassment. He turned it around. He turned it around, the embarrassment of that situation. For me, that
Doctor,
is the contest. It's
Doctor,
not about the alcohol. It's not about the alcohol, but the wine is likely to be alcoholic.
we will get to, in that case, since Jesus is going about turning water into alcoholic wine, should Christians now begin to drink wine? But before we get to that, no, you can't take one side of something and then you are now running away. Jesus that turned over 250 gallons of water into alcoholic wine.
Yes, or something.
No, yes, please say something. But before you get to that something that you want to say, Mary knew to a large extent who her son was. She was informed at conception by the Holy Spirit, by the angel, that this son of yours is God himself. So she knew about the deity of Christ, and that was the reason she went to him. She knew that. But having said that, Kamsi also, because I don't want us to deviate, she now wants to say something that concerning these alcoholic wine and believers, because what I think I am taking out from this panel, tonight, is that Christians should consume alcohol, and they should consume large quantities, like it was consumed. Dr. Abbey, why are you making faces? That's what you are inferring. So, Kamsi, prove me wrong. You want to say something, and please go ahead and say it.
Okay, I'm having a teensy bit of network issues, so in case it goes off. You said if Christians should drink This is my standpoint. I think I'll first say this. We were so much better, Charis. Christians were so much better when we thought a couple of things were sins. I'm not going to lie to you. And this is what I mean. As someone who God has blessed with the gift of intelligence, I think in this generation, especially with our generation, we need to know when knowledge is power and when ignorance is bliss. We need to know, right? Because a lot of Christians were way better Christians when they thought certain things were sin. Until yes, they acquired knowledge and they realized, oh, there are parameters around this and that and all of that.
Oh my. Charis, would you continue for
Okay.
her? Okay, carry on.
God
Hey.
Okay. Sorry, is my network on now?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
You're back. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it keeps going off and on. I'll switch my devices soon. God gives us
Charis, do you have an idea of where she's going with what she's saying? Because you are the voice of today. Where now
what she's saying already, what she's saying has already struck a chord in me, because I get exactly what she's saying. There are people who, there was a point in their life that they thought, so maybe some of us, our parents, don't do this one, oh. They sing, or the famous thing of, okay, she's back.
No, finish your sentence, then she can go back. She can carry on.
Okay, now the famous thing of, parents telling their daughters, if a man touches you, you get pregnant. If a man touches you, you won't get pregnant. But now they go and men touch them, and the touching goes further, and now they actually get pregnant. If they were ignorant of the fact that, oh, no one gets pregnant just by a touch, then they would actually avoid being touched. And if you avoid being touched, then obviously if you avoid being even touched appropriately, then automatically you will never be touched inappropriately. And now you will never have, to deal with sexual sin or anything, because you believe that if they touch you, you get pregnant. But the day you discovered the same thing with Adam and Eve eating, I'm not trying to equate it to it. The same with Adam and Eve eating that fruit. Oh, now we've eaten it and God has not struck us down. So could the devil, obviously they told God, oh, we're naked. How do you know you're naked? All that. But like now, me being the girl, this man has touched me, nothing happened. Okay, let's go further. Since a touch didn't do anything, what next can we do? What extent could we go to the point that nothing happens? And then as you're going to that extent, it passes that extent. And then something actually happens and you actually get pregnant. Now, you asked a question. Marshall asked a question. She said, okay, could that be reducing, there's a way he puts it, reducing the deity of Jesus or something like that, of him not knowing.
About not knowing, yes.
Yeah. I'll just answer that question. I want to answer that question and also ask one, because you saying, could it be reducing the deity of Jesus, or could it be us discovering having a wider revelation of the fact that he was also human. Because also, even in the garden, when he was praying before they finally came to take him, you discover that Jesus being the Son, because Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Jesus being the Son, you discover that the Son is God, but the Son is in the Godhead, but why is the Son having a different will from the Father? Because the Son is now telling the Father that let your will be done. That means the Son had a different will. So could that mean that the deity lost its structure, or could it mean that the Son was manifesting the fact that he was a human? I don't know. But things like that, Jesus not knowing that they will eventually want him to do a miracle, even though his time had not yet come. Jesus being in the garden and him not having the same will that the Father had, to the point that he was even saying, "My spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak," showing us that sometimes the flesh can have a negative impact on the spirit, and you must, be in tune with the spirit. Of course, his spirit was telling him what the Father's will was. Maybe it was his flesh that was trying to tell him, a different will and everything. Maybe that is what he was talking about when he was saying that, "Oh, if it's my own will, this cup, I'll allow it to pass over me, but your will," that kind of thing. Could it be him speaking as God the Son, or could it be him speaking as Jesus who came to earth to die? Same thing for the first miracle. Could it be Jesus just being Jesus, Mary's boy, or Jesus the Savior?
Very good question. When Jesus was on earth, he was fully man. He was fully man, even though he had that power to change things, heal, but when he was on earth, he was fully man. But don't let's go into that too much, because if we decide to answer all of those questions that you have posed, we will deviate from the issue of the water Jesus turned into wine, alcoholic or non-alcoholic. We've had soon-to-be barrister Kamsi Stephens say the intention of Jesus was not to get people drunk. So if that was the intention of Jesus, he will certainly not have turned water into alcoholic wine, sitting there after some days. This is my belief. I'm not saying anybody should believe what I believe. Sitting there after a few hours, like the example of palm wine that I gave, we know, in fact, forget about even just palm wine. Why do they say that if a wine is more aged, it tastes better, it's more fermented? It's simply because of the sitting time that it has. That's the main reason. So my question as we begin to round up is, Dr. Abbey, are you going to now go and preach at the pulpit on Sunday to your congregation, telling them that, well, Jesus turned water into alcoholic wine, therefore you don't have a problem if they drink? And this is where we're rounding up. Dr. Abbey, please answer that question, because our next topic for next month is really going to deal with the issue of, should Christians consume alcohol? But give us a teaser Dr. Abbey, because you've said the wine is alcoholic. So please, I dare you to go and preach it in church on Sunday, that your
Well,
congregation should start drinking wine.
well, may I say that to drink wine is not a sin.
Yes.
Okay. We do not, our message or the message that I receive is not to tell people to drink wine, to forget their problems and all those things. I preach the message of hope and the grace in which we now stand. So really, I've preached around this miracle, and I preach it from the intention of a good thing to come. The emphasis was not on either the wine was alcoholic or not. And it's not the basis for anyone to say, since the Lord turned water to wine, then I can drink wine. No, that's not your reason. You want to drink wine. That's why you want to drink wine. You understand? Now, in I think it's First Timothy chapter 5, where people always refer also when Paul wrote to Timothy that, drink less of water, drink wine for your stomach ache. Now, is that wine that Paul referred to, was it the same wine as they had at the wedding in Cana? Was it alcoholic? I can just say that it's just the kind of wine that they drink, which may not be the same kind of processed wine that they drink today, which has like 10-15% alcoholic. No. However, in terms of the principle of the process, it's possible that those wine, when they save it for hours and days, there may be intention to increase or to make it alcoholic. But those wine that were mentioned in the Bible, both the one that was used at the Lord's table and at the Canaan wine, and the one that Paul said that Timothy should take, may not be the same kind of alcoholic wine we're talking about. But it is referred to as wine. It's different to water. So we cannot preach about these people because you are giving license to people to kind of sin and all kind of things. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our panelists, the Dr. McFoy, Dr. Abbey, and our voices of today. We did not reach a consensus, and I'm not surprised. There has never been a consensus reached on the topic of whether the water turned wine in Galilee was alcoholic or was it not alcoholic. There was never a consensus. It's the longest living argument since that miracle over 2,000 years ago. Is still going on. It's a theological debate, and we could sit here and trash it for hours. You want to say something quickly?
Yeah, I was saying something previously, actually.
Yes, say something in closing, because
I'll just say this. For the question you threw, speaking. Can you hear me? Is my network fine?
Very well, we can hear you.
Okay, so I will say this, right? Speaking for my generation, and genuinely, I think Charis will agree with me because we have the same stance about it. God places parameters for our own protection. If he gives, In the last conversation we had that I was also privileged to be a panelist on, I said this same thing about the same topic, that he knows what he created in the subject of sex is good, but he created a parameter around it. Because one thing about us is we don't understand that as much as God is God, he's also a father. And he's not just a father, he's a good father. So oftentimes when he sets boundaries for us, growing up, there are things that my mom would tell me, oh, don't do. Some I listened to, some I didn't listen to. And when I didn't listen, I found out why she told me not to do those things, right? So God knows that we human beings, we as humans, in as much as we depend on him, even if you're the strongest Christian and everything, there's still the frailness of humanity in you. That is why we're told to flee
from
right?
all up.
I feel like my network is paused. Can you still hear me?
Okay, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Well,
So
can hear you,
that
but
is why
can't see
we're
you.
told to flee from every appearance of evil.
Sin.
The problem with my generation is, Dr. Funke, we like seeing how close we can get to fire before.
Yes. Oh, the network has ceased.
Sorry, I'm so sorry about that. Like I was saying, the problem with my generation is we like seeing how close we can get to fire before it eventually burns us. So if God tells us,
Like every
okay,
young
he gives us
people, like most young
like
people,
that,
not just
but
your
the problem,
generation.
oh, I promise you, my generation, I don't think I've statistically, funny enough, our generation is statistically the most immoral generation ever. So
Oh.
it's a proven statistic. Even people who are not so religious know this, right? We like seeing how close, and it's so sad that it's especially in the kingdom. So this is the thing. Drunkenness.
Don't let's go into drunkenness now.
No, I'm saying
because
drinking alcohol.
you're going into the topic for May, of which you will have ample time to talk about. You will be talking about should Christians, whether your generation, the older generation, should they be drinking alcohol? And you will find out that even amongst Christians, alcohol is served in church as communion. Yes, why are you shaking your head, Charis? And some of the
because
alcohol
drinking
church
necessarily is not bad.
32% volume of alcohol. I'm telling
I was a
you.
Catholic. I can confirm this. I was a Catholic and I took Holy Communion. She's actually correct.
Even Anglican. You understand?
I'm being so for you,
but we will get to that.
So for you. She's actually correct.
Discussion. What does the Bible really say about alcohol consumption for Christians? Who should drink alcohol? Who shouldn't? Because of what is the reason why? Let's get to that discussion. Dr. Abbey will bring out all of his theological reasons why someone should or should not drink alcohol, in the kingdom, or who, because he started talking about Timothy having a little wine for his stomach, according to his father in the Lord, Apostle Paul. We will talk about it. These are the issues we come together to talk about in Remove the Mask. Remove the Mask today has come to a crossroad. What is that crossroad? The crossroad is some people, on the majority of the people on this panel, have said the water that Jesus turned into wine was alcoholic. And I am the lone voice in the desert saying, Listen, guys, it wasn't alcoholic. It was new wine, fresh juice. I wish I had some more people on my side today. I was hoping Kamsi was going to be one of those persons, but everybody seemed to
What's
be.
your side? I don't know your side. What is your side?
My
Do we
side is that
agree?
that water that Jesus turned into wine in Canaan
Okay.
was non-alcoholic, but it's later, after hours of sitting, because of the Jewish culture of having 7 days for a wedding,
Wasn't the wine served immediately?
started fermenting, and it became alcohol. But Jesus did not create alcoholic wine for that wedding. You know, and as you already, in a way, you all agreed that his intent is not to get people drunk. So if his intent is not to get people drunk, therefore that water he turned into wine is not alcoholic. It was the circumstances of the Jewish wedding that gravitated to alcohol, if there was certainly alcohol. So for this month, I want to thank every one of you, our panelists. Dr. Abbey, you are so phenomenal. You're so kind. Thank you for opening the scriptures to us. Charis and Kamsi, thank you so much for coming to represent your generation. But your task is not complete, because in the next Remove the Mask, you should be able to tell us more about that generation of yours, what they do with alcohol. And it's not just for you to come and tell us. What does the Bible say, Dr. Abbey? You need to let us know. What does the Bible say about alcohol? Is drinking, the fact that I'm saying Jesus did not turn alcohol, water into alcohol, does not mean that I'm saying that drinking alcohol is a sin or not a sin. No, let's come and remove that mask. The mask we have been able to remove today is that the wine at Galilee, at the wedding, later became alcoholic. So, should we now consume that alcoholic wine? That is the question for the next Remove the Mask. Dr. Abbey, thank you so much. Charis, Kamsi, thank you so much. The next Remove the Mask, we will be glad. And Dr. Foy, I know he had another appointment. Thank you so much. But we would need to complete Remove the Mask about alcohol's consumption amongst Christians. Are they really openly drinking or pretending? We will talk more. We're coming to Remove the Mask. With this, we have come to the end of April Remove the Mask. Until we come again your way in May, when we are going to be talking about, should Christians drink alcohol, or is it a sin to drink alcohol? I want to say thank you, panelists. Thank you, Voices of Today. Thank you for your time, and thank you, our audience, and those that will go later to review our discussion today. Thank you very much. Please share this so that people can get ready, and then they can also get more enlightened about what the Word of God says. Because next Remove the Mask, Dr. Abbey and other theologians will be on set to let us
Thank you.
know exactly what the Bible says about alcohol. Charis and Kamsi, they will come and represent their generation. And we have to look for somebody in their generation that also will have a different voice. He's Christian, he loves the Lord, but, so we will talk more about that in our next conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Until we come your
Thank
way
you. So,
again, this is Remove the Mask. Goodbye.